cord to the computer.
That's what he said.
And that's what she said. All right, guys. Hello, week 2, the OGRE Network podcast with Aaron, the man, and good old
Super smart. Can you see
super
my
smart? Yep,
super
see it right
smart.
there. It says super smart.
I forgot I got to change that.
So yeah, so this is really week 1 because week 1 really didn't go well. So we'll just start with
Why not? What happened?
something with you and your recording. You
I'm
can hear
not the
me
one
fine.
recording it.
You can hear me perfectly. It's something to do with you personally, but we'll work that out later.
Always pointing the finger. Always pointing the finger. You know what
Always.
they say, every time you point a finger, you got 4 pointed back at you or 3 pointed back at you, right?
Oh yeah, come on.
That's you, pal.
That's me. All right, so what's going on? How'd the week go?
Oh, busy week. I think, anytime you got family, kids, things going on, weather's been wild. We had opening weekend for Little League. So it's like, trying to get your work done. And, I think that's the blessing and curse of this industry is that you're allowed freedoms, of time. However, if you take off, at 3:00 this day, there's that extra day you got to log in a couple more, or that one weekend that you're planning something comes up, or it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a blessing and curse of that. So it's been really nice. Last week I was able to get a lot of stuff done and get ready for kids stuff over the weekend and stuff, and got some birthdays coming up. But now I feel like this week, like getting into this Monday, is just like trying to catch back up on all that time you take for granted and that flexibility that you get. It's like, listen, just because you utilize that flexibility does not mean the work went away. It's like, it's like when you go on vacation and you enjoy your vacation, but the week leading up to vacation, you got to work twice as hard to be ahead. Then the week coming back from vacation, you got to work twice as hard to get caught up. It's almost like you killed yourself by going on vacation.
No, I get it. That's kind of they always say if you want to get busy in real estate, go on vacation, because that's when you get the busiest.
Every time. I joke, and I think I've even talked to you about this. Every time I seem to go somewhere, somebody calls me with a new piece of business. Like, amazing problem to have, but I think I'm just gonna live out of an RV and just start leaving like randomly, like on Tuesdays for a family vacation. Even on this last one, we headed up to Bryan Head just for a quick trip with the family and some friends that we do every year. On the way up, I got a text message from a client that I've been talking to for a while. My last communication with them was early November. And they're like, oh, okay, we're ready. I mean, so I get it. Like you say, like without fail, I bet you 4 out of my last 5 vacations, something like that happened.
Right. No, and it does. But I did something really, really cool this weekend. So family reunion, the Keller Williams yearly convention. They have 2 yearly ones. The big one's family reunion. The other one's mega agent camp. But family reunion had a really great keynote speaker. And you and I talked about it a little bit this morning, Ed Mylet. So we kind of sat down, Mercy and I just listened to him. And, it was a simple message. Just one more, don't, if you were told that you could do whatever you wanted to do and accomplish everything in your life, but you had to do one more day of prospecting, one more day of appointments, one more day, just one more day, instead of looking at everything you have to do, just do it for one more day. And I was like, well, that's a unique way to look at things.
Sure.
Right? We all look at big goals and how are we going to get to big goals? And sometimes we all get frustrated and we all get, I think, discouraged with, oh, well, I really didn't get everything done I was supposed to do today. And his message is just, it's one more day. Also, one of the things that he talks about, which I guess resonates with me, is there's in every family that's either well off or on the way to being well off or on the way to be comfortable or on the way to something, there had to be somebody to break the curse or to break the system and decide, hey, I'm going to do things differently. And
challenge the norm kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that he was saying was, are you that person? Right? Are you that person in your family that now, because his dad was an alcoholic. His great grandfather died in a gutter in Boston because he passed out and he ended up drowning from being drunk. So he's like, his last name, my last name, has always been associated with drinkers, druggies, that kind of environment and people. And he's the one that broke the curse. So now his name is synonymous with success and doing things right and making $100 million and all that other stuff. So are you that person? And one of the things that he said, and it's really true. Like, what do you think when you go on a listing appointment, right? I'm going to ask you because he asked this question.
I like it.
When you go on a listing appointment, right? What do you talk about? Like,
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to try to overthink the question here. I think in my mind, I walk into the listing question, the listing appointment with a couple of questions or a couple bullet points in mind, like, right? Like, I want to make sure I know enough about the property to talk about the property itself, like, how many beds, how many square footage, just like your basic filler
right.
stuff, right? And then the other thing I want to have in my head that I want to talk about at some point is the value that I can bring to them. I think those are like really my only two things. I want to be informative to talk knowledgeably about the property, and I want to talk about my value. Everything else to me is handled upon them bringing it up, because I feel like if I come from a place of value and I speak about knowledgeable about the home, I'm knowledgeable about my value. I think a lot of the questions or objections that people get nervous about, like, oh, what do they say when, you tell them your commission level? What do you say when, there's a transaction fee or this or that? I think if you do a good job with explaining your value up front, I've had people sign listing agreements and we never even discussed or never was an issue of commission or, charges or brokerage fees or anything like that. Because they just knew that the value was there. So for me, I would say those are my big two things. And then my third kind of, I don't think it's an item, it's more of a mindset, is I just kind of let them dictate where the conversation goes within reason, right? Like, I'm not going to let them walk me down a path I'm not ready for, but I will put out little things. I'll adapt my conversation to getting to know them, building a relationship, because you never know what the potential listing is going to talk about. And so I think for me, those are kind of my three things heading into a listing appointment that I'm prepared to handle.
Okay. So one of the things that he said, right, is what if we change the word value?
Oh, so I said one of the words.
Yeah. What if we change it to happiness?
Happies?
Happy. Like just being happy. Like, what is going to make you happy? What's a happier person?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because people move on emotion.
Yeah.
So, like he asked the question when he was doing his speech, like what company has the most real estate in the United States? What company do you think it is?
I have no idea. Keller Williams.
McDonald's.
Huh? McDonald's. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they own their land. Right. I thought you were talking about real estate company.
Yeah. Just what company owns the most real estate in the world?
Yeah.
United States. And it's McDonald's. And then who sells the most food in the country?
Well, I'm gonna just follow your lead and go with McDonald's.
There you go. What's their two biggest sellers?
Ooh, I'm gonna say the Big Mac and French fries.
Wrong.
Oh.
Their number one is a Happy Meal.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then the second is a Coke. Because the old ads was buy a Coke and get a smile.
Okay.
So Ray Crockett was a genius, right? Because he decided that, hey, we're opening this new thing to do food, right? This new restaurant for burgers, and we need a character. And of course, everybody thinks of a burger and thinks of a clown as your perfect mascot, right? Like that's
right.
It's not. But for him, it was, we're selling what it makes you feel when you get a burger from us.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So he's saying, if we really truly look and talk to our clients and figure out what truly makes you happy. Like, what about, I was talking to a guy today and I used it and it made total sense. I talked to a guy selling a gas station. He's like, you know, and at first, when I first cold called him, he was like, no, I don't want to sell, blah, 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 blah. Then he's like, yeah, and actually we have an appointment on Thursday to go take pictures and do some things. And he's like, Ed, I'm 75 years old. And I just, you know, I don't know. I don't want to make the wrong decision because I'm 75, but I don't want to work for the rest of my life. So I want to find happiness. And I'm like, we can help you down that path to get happiness. We just have to figure out what is it that you're looking for that's going to make you happy.
Yeah.
He's like, Ed, that makes total sense. Like, let's meet and let's talk about this. I just got a call right now, right before I jumped on with you from a previous client that bought some properties in another state, started a new business, and it failed miserably. Right. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you need me to do to make it better? And he's like, well, can we meet tomorrow at 1? Because I want to rent a new place here, maybe rent out my house so I can get some more income and I can work things out. Perfect. You know what? Let's meet tomorrow. But it's all emotional driven. So we're looking at it as we want to provide them much value, but everybody goes in and says, these are the comps, right? Everybody goes in,
Yeah.
what your house is worth. Everybody comes in and says, I'm going to do, Aaron does XYZ for marketing, but I do ABC. So mine's marketing is completely different than Aaron's. And it's really not. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but we all do pretty much the same thing. But why don't we focus on selling happiness and the emotion that people need?
Well, I love it. I love it. And because, you know, I mean, it makes total sense. And, you know, like just to kind of piggyback after the more you say that and the more you start to think about it, you know, it's one of those things when you put something in somebody's ear, then their brain starts to go down like that rabbit hole of that word. And I'm thinking, you know, happiness, and it's just it's in the eye of the beholder. You know, I mean, I had a client that we closed on last week, and the home that they originally bought, they bought to put a pool in. You know, they wanted it for exercise and for rehab. There were some knee issues, things like that. And quite literally, they got to the point where they were unhappy living in that home because they couldn't do what they wanted to do because the previous agent that they had worked with years ago about the home, they just, the due diligence wasn't done right, and they were set up in a bad spot. And so they made this downsize in their purchase, but the whole time we talked about, you know, it was an unhappy place for them to live because they couldn't accomplish their goal, which was to have a pool, to be able to exercise. And, you know, they moved to a condo in a different area all the way on the other side of town, and you can tell they're happier now. And again, for them, the happiness wasn't a mortgage payment, the size of the rooms. It was having somewhere they could exercise, you know, a pool that they had their dream set on to do the rehab, the cardio, things like that. So you're right, to every person, happiness is defined a little bit differently. And to some people, it's like, I'm only happy if I make millions of dollars a year. You got some people that are happy, like, listen, I don't care what kind of car I drive. You know, I have my job, but you know, making me happy is you know, like for me, and I'm not going to say money doesn't make me happy. Money makes me happy because it makes my family happy because we can afford to do things that make us happy. But ultimately, for me, what makes me happy? For someone like me is that, you know, coaching baseball, coaching softball, being around the kids, being able to get out of the office at 2 o'clock on a certain day, you know, at 3 o'clock on a certain day, to be there, like, that's happiness for me. And so I think you have a great point, is that as you tie this into, you know, buyers and sellers, you know, what ideally, I think it's a great question, you know, and I think maybe that's something that needs to be worked into buyer consultations, listing appointments, is like you said, man, how can I make you happy? I've got a guy right now, his son's signing a letter of intent to go play Division I football. And what's going to make them happy right now is moving somewhere close to them to watch him play football. You know, not too many of us get to watch our kids, or will get to watch our kids play sports at that kind of level. And so for him, he's like, you know, I'm sell my house. Here it is. Great. Go for it. I'll rent if I need to, but I want to have the ability to, you know, be where he is and watch him play. And that is his happiness. You're right.
And that's the thing is if we tie it to an emotion, right? Because I think you and I think that's why we gel well together and we work together well, is we're not just about the payday. Like I was talking to somebody today, and like, if it's about the money, I can make money. Like, it's not money driven. It's how do we help people, right? But I think if we take it to the next levels, how do we help people and their happiness? Like, what do you truly, you know, is it that you have to sell your house because you want to get back to your grandkids? or you have to sell your house because you want to downsize, or you want to get into a bigger house for your kids. Like whatever that is, every happiness, like you said, is different for everybody.
Right.
We focus on the happiness and everything comes, and then just focus on one more call, one more day of trying, one more trying to figure out what the right move is. And I hate to piggyback on his thing, but true to Ed Mylet is like, we all struggle and we all go through different things, and struggle. My struggles may look completely different than your struggles, right? But when we get to a place where we're happy, then we need to share that happiness, share the abundance mindset, and share having people do well, because that's the goal. Is like, we can't take that with us, right? I mean, we can't be buried with all of our money. We can't be buried with everything we own. But if we can help people be happy, that's truly what you leave behind. That's your legacy.
Well, it's funny you say that, because then I think we could probably, whatever industry it is, I think you could probably find out the people that, there's always going to be your exceptions, right? But I'm starting to think about, again, now this word happy resonates in my head and stuff. And it's funny, this really takes it in a wild direction. But my kids and my nieces and nephews, they always called my dad happy. It kind of came out of a weird birthday thing, and I was like, man, you better change your name before it sticks. And he's like, nope, I'm just rolling with it. And he was one of those people that wanted to make everybody else happy. And when you say this, it kind of ties it all back in together. And that was his style. And he was successful. He was a self-made man, and he wasn't always happy, I can tell you that. But he did ultimately, his personality is very much like mine. And I think it's very much like yours, although I think we have very different styles of how we operate, which I do think you're right. We've got the pinky and the brain style, right? Like we feed off each other well, which I think you have to have.
Right.
But I think ultimately, if you you made a comment, I think we are both happier when we make other people happy, and I think it speaks to, like, for me, like for coaching, it's not about me, it's about the kids, it's about seeing them. Like, I'm happy when I feel like I'm helping them and I see their smiles on their face. I see them happy. I would, and I know this is one of those obvious things, and maybe not for everybody, but to me, it's like, I'd rather be the gift giver than the gift getter. Like, I would rather, spend $500 on buying, my kids a bat, my wife a nice present, than spend $20 on, and a shirt or something. Right. I won't spend money on myself very often. But it's like, coming from that happiness, what makes me happy is providing for others, seeing their faces light up, watching them open presents, giving them a gift, doing something for somebody else, and you watching that smile on their face. That's where I get my happiness from.
And that's the thing. I think I'm a little different, because I like both. I like getting and I like giving gifts. I'm not gonna say I don't. I love them. And I always have a joke that whatever gift I get, I have to use right away, so that if I die tomorrow and somebody comes behind me, they're gonna get already stuff that's used. They don't.
There you go.
That's just my little plug for, like, my philosophy on things. But I do get more value out of helping other people. And I think like I do that here in the office. I try to help as many people as I can, and I try to look,
no doubt,
not only what benefits me, but what can I bring to the table for somebody else? Because I think that's ultimately what we do. We sell, like, whether it's a house for an individual, whether it's a business that's looking to make money, whether it's a probate that's going through probably one of the most difficult times in their life, or a divorce. Like, our job, because that's our job, right? Our job is to sell real estate. Our job is to make it better and make it easier, and not be difficult, and to the point where people finish with us and say, I never want to talk to Aaron again because he's miserable. You know what I'm saying? It's more of the, hey, you know what? And one of my greatest champions, right, of social media, is a lady that I ran into that had lost her mom. Right. And I was there for her. And when she had to clean out her place, we had a junk company come, and I sat there and I held her hand while she cried, and they were taking out the garbage, and like, just everything. I was there every step of the way for her. And she's one of my greatest champions. Like, if somebody goes on social media and says, hey, I'm looking for this. She's like, hey, this guy made me feel like I mattered in a time where I didn't think I did because I lost my mom. Um, and we take for granted that that's really what we do, is we are here to help people, right? The money's like really nothing in our real estate license. If you really know the truth, nothing says we have to get paid to do this. Like it doesn't. There's nothing there. Obviously, we have to get paid because that's how we live.
I was gonna say I better relook at my license.
Yeah, but on the license, there's nothing written that says you have to get a commission for
Right.
what you do. So truly, we do a service to make it easier for somebody to move on to their next adventure or their next life. So if we focus with the end of making them happy, I think the whole process gets easier.
Well, and I think to your point, I think we've probably seen in the last what 3-4 months, probably. I mean, well, you go back to when real estate, you could put something up on a Friday a couple of years ago, right? And it was gone by Saturday, multiple offers, right? And every Manny Mo and Jack and Jill and Jane and Thomas and Theodore and everybody in between was like, I'm going to be a real estate agent, right? They got in because they knew somebody, they sold a house and they said, oh, this is great. This is great. Well, the reason they got into it was not to help people, not for happiness. They got into it for that money, for that greed, for that self-fulfilling prophecy to make themselves better. And okay, they got into it to make money. They also saw all these shows on HGTV. You're selling this, buying this, flipping, flopping this, and all this stuff. And and those guys work hard on those shows. Don't get me wrong, but they don't think they show that side always. And so I think now, as we're starting to see in the last couple of months, you're starting to see agents go from active to non-active on a pretty rapid rate because that's not happening anymore. And I think the agents that you're seeing stick around, the agents that you see are having success, are the agents that are not focused selfishly on themselves. They're focused on the happiness of their clients. And you can tell, and for me, I can tell, and I think kind of, and I know you're the same way, but for me, that kind of, it's like keeping score, right? How do you know if that's working? One, I can feel it in myself and I know how I treat people and how I act around people. But I also go back and I look at my business. I look up at my board. I'm like, okay, that's a referral. That's a referral. That's a referral. That's a referral. That's a referral from a referral that I haven't even closed business with yet, right? And I think that just kind of becomes a testament that's like, if you weren't actively trying to help people, trying to create happiness for them and accomplish that goal, if you were just out there trying to be purely transactional, this is a sell widget X to buy widget Y. I don't need to talk to you. Here's the policy. This is going to go. See you in 30 days. Boom, bang, done. See you later. I don't think you would look up at your boards and see all this referral. I think those are the people that are constantly figuring out, well, how do I get new business? How do you have so much business? How do you, why am I got to get on the phones and cold call people? Well, that's because the clients you're getting, you're not treating and trying to take care of their happiness. Like you're mentioning, it's like, they're just trying to get from point A to point B as fast as they can, collect the paycheck along the way, and then move on. And for some people that does work. Like, I'm not saying it's a broken model, but I think those are the exceptions to the model, the people that are purely transactional. And then you have the people that are going out to solve a happiness, situation, it's when one of the listing appointments I went on, it's not that they didn't like their home, but you look back, what was his happiness? His happiness was being able to have a room for each one of his kids. They were one room short. The parents were sleeping in the one bedroom, not the primary, because he had two girls that they wanted to give them the bigger bathroom, right? So it's like finding their happiness was finding them a home that they could do all of that in. And I think people lose sight of that. These agents sometimes lose sight of, that you're right. It's trying to take care of this happiness issue and plug that hole for them instead of being so transactional. I think the ones that are sticking around have figured that out. The ones that are switching brokerages because it's the brokerage's fault. It's my team's fault. How many people have you had that said, hey man, listen, all you got to do is, make these calls, talk to them, find out what it is. Let's help them out. And like, I don't want to make the calls. I don't want to make the calls. And then they end up doing it on their own, trying to go on their own, going to a different brokerage. And what do they do at that brokerage? Oh, I'm doing well. Well, why? Oh, I'm making phone calls. I'm talking to people. Well, we told you that a long time ago, right? It's
right.
I think people, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And it's not so much an issue at a brokerage or a team. It's more of, your mindset. Are you in the mindset to be transactional, or are you in the mindset to solve happiness, create happiness, whatever, however you want to define it. But I think you're spot on there with, like running off that Ed Mylet statement. I think there's a lot of happiness that can be generated from there.
Well, the thing is, you've heard me make calls, right? And my always thing is, how can I help? Right? That's my question. I don't ask.
So I still got this is our entire script right here.
There you go. How can I help?
This is the post that I keep by the phone as my script. What script book do you use? Here's my script book.
That's
How
it.
can I help you?
Right.
There's my
That's
script
really,
book right there.
That's truly what the question is.
Right.
I don't like it. It doesn't, it's irrelevant where you're moving to or what you're moving to and what your motivation is. How can I help you get there? Wherever there is. Because there is a there. We just got to figure out where that there is and how do we get there.
What's funny too is that you go back to the whole who owns the most land, who sells the most food, right? And when we were talking about McDonald's, when you pull up to their drive-through, you walk into their front counter. What's one of the first questions they ask you?
How can I help?
How can I help? Right. So it's kind of funny, you tie that all together and the whole conversation comes full circle. And it's like, how can you help? Well, I'm hungry. It would make me really happy if I had a happy meal and a Coke with a smile right now, right?
That's it.
That would take care of my happiness.
Right.
And ultimately, you said, when you got a fast food restaurant, how can I help? Well, obviously, I came here with a problem. How can I help? I'm hungry. you
right.
know.
And I think that's it. I mean, once we shift our focus into how do we help and how do we become servant to helping people, then I think that at the end of the day makes us better and feel better. And really, if we focus on how can we get more people into a happy place, I think in the long run, they're going to understand that sometimes it's not all about the money. Sometimes it's about, for some people, yeah, they're going to sell and they're going to tell you, you know what, I'm looking to sell because I need to cash in. Right. Other people are going to tell you, I don't want to sell here. I know we had an opportunity when my mother-in-law died in 2014, when she passed away. We had an opportunity to keep a house that was super inexpensive because she bought an inexpensive number. But the way the house made us feel, we didn't want the house.
Yeah.
Because we knew, like, to us, it was bad memories. Like when my mom's house in Florida, when all her stuff gets sold, it's going to be bittersweet, but like I can't go to the same places that she used to go with us and hang out because that's the feelings are not happy feelings there. I'd rather remember the happy feelings. So our job is to make people happy. So we just have to figure out what that happiness is.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you the final question. I like to write like little one-word things, and you had a good one today with happy, and that took up, a lot of our time today, but I think it was a great conversation. But one thing will tie into one of the notes that I had talked about today, and I'm going to rephrase it now that we've kind of had our conversation. Is okay. It's I guess it's a twofold, but I'm going to ask it one way first. In the real estate industry, the one thing you talked about, or one more day you talked about happiness, doing it one more day. What is the one thing you feel that you could come back tomorrow and do to bring happiness to potential clients that you're working with?
I think coming from a mindset of the outcome of either listing the property or selling you a property is irrelevant. What is it truly that we need to do to put you in a better position, to make you happy?
Yeah. So for a lot of it, so for the most part, it's just rewording that conversation to come from a place of a happy provider.
Correct. Become a happy distributor, right? That's what we have to become. Happy distributors. We're here to create happiness. So
essentially you're creating a new business model that with an organizational chart, you typically have your CEO, your CFO, your CMO, your financial people, executive. So what you're saying is that we just need to now create a CHO, the Chief Happiness Officer.
Yes.
So that's what, so tomorrow when we come in, you're not a real estate agent, you're not a salesperson, you are the CHO of your life. You are the chief happiness officer.
Yeah.
You need to put it in big red lights, flashing big things, surround yourself with things that make you happy.
Correct.
And I think that happiness bleeds over.
Then happiness bleeds over to the next person you meet, and the next person there's been studies all over the world that like you go to a hospital, right? There was a study, and this was from a family reunion a couple of years ago, but someone did a study that if they walked into the emergency room, right, and they were greeted by somebody who's just like, what's wrong? Sit down, versus somebody that when they walked in said, hi, Aaron, how are you doing today? How can we help you? That
I'm not doing great. I'm in the emergency room, pal.
Right. But just the constant caring and asking of the right questions,
right,
their satisfaction was much higher as a rating than it had been in the past, because people were happier, even though they were still in pain. You didn't take the pain away, but you made them happy. And like one of the things Ed Mylet said, and this will be the closing of it. His dad was sick at the end with cancer, whatever. And he talks about the story about his dad. But when his dad couldn't play golf anymore, he taught his dad visualization. So he would call his dad and be like, hey, how you doing? And his dad would be like, oh, good. How are you? And his dad would be like, oh, I just played 18 rounds with you. You played horrible. You suck today. And he would just smile, because in his mind, he had played and he had spent a couple hours doing the thing that was the most important to him, which is spending time with his son.
Yeah.
So I think that, if we meditate a little more, if we look at our day and figure out, okay, how can we help more people? I think at the end of the day, it'll make us happier and we'll make our clients happier.
I agree, man. I agree.
All right, buddy. So let's keep this chat going next week. Hopefully you have a great week this week.
My week this week is going to be based off happiness. I'm going to write it as big as I can. It's going to be my motto for the week. Create happiness.
So I'm curious to see how you do next week when we talk, if that's your motto this week.
I am. I'm going to leave here today. I'm going to try to leave every time we talk. I'm going to leave with one big thing to work on. Like you said, one more, right? One more.
Right.
My one more for this week is that I am going to actively pursue, create, and share happiness. That's going to be my goal for the week.
That's a great goal. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. See ya.
Later.